I have the pleasure to introduce, some of you know him well, Pat Fagan, PhD. He's a senior fellow and director of the Marriage and Religion Research Institute, which examines the relationships among family, marriage, religion, and community, and the social problems that we're all facing together in America. Pat and his wife, Teresa, have 8 children and number 20 grandchild on the way, I understand. And their son, Neil, was my debate partner in high school and is now the headmaster of Northridge, the Boys Opus Dei school in Chicago. So 2 years with me, he went on to some pretty impressive things. Thank you so much, Pat.
Well, thank you very much. We had to have a break because I can't talk without PowerPoint. You know, I speak 3 languages: Gaelic, which is useless to be here, English, and PowerPoint. So here we go. This talk is mainly about a course myself and some friends have developed for fathers to raise great sons. And by great sons, I mean great husbands and great fathers. How to raise the sons your best friend's daughters want to marry. Or that's what the Heights is all about, to raise the boys your daughter's friends want to marry. Your best daughter's friends want to marry. And actually, I'm going to situate it at the end within the context of what Cardinal Cipriani reminded us of, which took me a bit by surprise, that the rest of the world is looking to the United States, that Europe is old and tired. We're not old and tired. Actually, at one stage, I had planned, when myself and Teresa, to go back to Ireland, but I changed my mind because I could see what was coming, and I knew that the battle could be fought for the family more here than back in Europe, without going into the details. But this reminded me of it. So, guys, we have work to do here in Washington, and I'm going to lay out some of the agenda here. Okay, quick history. This is the map of the expansion of Christianity from its beginning through about the year 1000. It's a pretty famous map. You've probably seen it before. The very dark are the early Christian communities up to about the year 300. The lighter green is up to about 600. That yellow is about 800. They got their history a bit wrong because actually the Irish had converted most of the west of England. You know, however, let's not get into that. I'm an Irishman, and the English never get the Irish history right. And then by about the year 1000, where that red line is, Christianity had spread right across. One of the things that struck me, actually, and it has a huge effect on civilizations and on European civilization and why it overtook Chinese civilization. The Chinese themselves are very aware of it by about the year 1300, where the social and economic and human capital of Europe just rose so much. Culturally, it burst forth in the Renaissance and lots of others. And it is intact marriage. With the spread of the church, spread intact lifelong marriage, which has huge effects on the next generation and compounded over generations in learning, in happiness, in many, many things. All the social science data, every single federal US survey demonstrates this all the time. Those adults and children in always intact marriage do best on every single measure measured. By the way, those who worship weekly, as a group, there's a whole bell curve. The same thing happens in the United States. We know children and adults who worship God weekly as a group, not individually, do better than any other group on every measure measured in the US federal data system. It's amazing. Okay, so intact marriage is key. Actually, I would say marriage is the foundational relationship of every society. And as marriage goes, so goes that society and so goes civilization. So we are in a breakdown of civilization as marriage has been breaking down. But the good news is, actually, in the United States, that's beginning to level out and beginning to turn back up again. The latest data, not dramatically so, but beginning so. We may have plateaued out. A lot depends, of course, on what happens in the future. The other thing is I have got underneath there the two great loves. The two great loves are the love of God and the love of neighbor. And for most of us here, we're sitting beside the neighbor we selected to serve for the rest of our lives. And we will be judged on it. But it is so powerful. All sorts of terrible things happening across the world. One of the biggest problems, actually, that's facing the human race is depopulation. And that's one that we are going to solve. Our children, we're already solving. We know how to do it. We know how to have fertile, big families that are happy and that the kids want to copy. Poor basket case of the world, and we've got to get to them. We've got to figure it out ourselves and then export it. South Korea. South Korea last year had 0.7 fertility rate per woman. And Seoul, the capital of South Korea, has 0.33. 1/7 of what's needed to just replace the present population. Okay. Myself and some friends, looking at lots of stuff, we decided to zero in on helping fathers raise great sons, because the male, on almost everything to do with the family and with children, is the tremendous catalyst. The mother is the anchor. The egg is massively bigger than the sperm. And it's almost metaphorical of the role of the male. We are catalysts, and we either make everything stronger or everything weaker. That is the male. And the Marxist feminists figured that out, and they set out to displace the male from the family. The patriarchy became the great enemy. Actually, the patriarchy is the center of the great strength. Okay. We saw from Mary Hassan this morning, and we see all the time, the big battle is over the sexual, over the relationship between male and female, between man and God, and fertility. And by the way, after everything is over, after the last judgment, the earth is ended, the last judgment is gone. If you look back over history, why did God start it all? To have a large family with him in heaven forever. The end of our work, or let me put it this, at the end in the Aristotelian sense, we will know we have done a very good job when we see our son or our daughter at the altar marrying a great guy or a great girl. So that both couples, both sets of parents, are very happy with what they see. So our job as men and as fathers is to get our sons there. Here in Washington, tremendous amount of young, beautiful, good women waiting to be asked to be married. It's a huge crisis, even here in this city. Now, one of the greatest discovery of the social sciences happened in Taiwan. You may have heard me say this before. 2017, brilliant piece of research. We all know how important it is for the mother to be attached to the child. The father's attachment to his child is absolutely fundamental. The prodigal son, the father's attachment to his son is the basis for the son to know he can always come back home, that he has a permanent home. The great discovery in Taiwan was when they figured out that by holding their child skin to skin from birth through just 3 days, 15 minutes a day, the massive difference in the bonding of those fathers who did that compared to the fathers who didn't. It was huge. It's a great secret. Spread it among all the young men who are having children, holding their baby skin to skin, and not just for a quarter hour, for 3 days, but through the early stage. There's nothing simpler. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to be an expert at anything. You just hold the baby skin to skin, and the bonding is massive. and sets a foundation on which everything else can be built. The other great thing for men, look, as you saw from Becca, just, the last speaker, women think things through, talk things through so much. They love it. They're great at it. They far outpace us. Us guys, we want something simple. Look, it is simple. For us guys, play. Play is a simple way. All through life, you can start, different kids, different ways, different dads, different ways. It doesn't matter. But it takes time, and time is love. And it makes all the difference in the bonding, the affection, the bonding of affection between the father and his child. Not just his son, his daughter as well, actually, the daughters. We've got another course coming on daughters soon. The marriage, as it's experienced, is key. The other part, actually, once the foundation of affection is deep and known, the next job the father has to do, spotting in both his son and his daughter, keeping an eye out for where their gifts are, where their inclination, where they love interacting with the world. And every child is a bit different, but they give off signals. See this guy here with the pencil? I don't know what the math problem is, but he's loving tackling it. He's into it. The other guy with the tennis racket, he's into it. There are all sorts of ways where our children signal where they love interacting with nature, using whatever gifts they have. It's a great thing just to spot those and keep them in mind and encourage them. Now, they'll go all over the place, actually, particularly if they're boys. They'll do all sorts of different things, and girls. But knowing that we're looking out for them and that we're their booster for their gift is going to give a boy the confidence of courage. When he knows he's loved, when he knows he's appreciated, and when his father has confidence in him to risk anything, then he has the courage to love as an adult man. And by the way, he'll need that courage to go after the great girl, the beautiful girl that he spots, and he better go after her quickly because other guys spot her too, and he better be better than the other guys if he's going to win her. And as fathers, we pass that on to our boys. But underneath it, they sense our affection for them and our confidence in them. They're the two massive gifts we give our boys and our daughters too in a different way. Well, not too different, but different. So the masculine confidence is a key thing. Another very savvy thing, you already do this, those of you who are here. Become friends with other families who have a way of life the same as yours when the children are young, so that by the time they're teenagers, they're already friends. And they're already beginning to associate. And out of those, I remember actually, I don't know if they're here, I won't mention their name. Mrs. Reig, who lives not too far from her, has a bunch of kids, and her kids are friends with my grand. And after church one Saturday morning, she was there, and there was a bunch of 5, 6, and 3-year-olds all running around the place having great fun. And I came up to her, and we were talking, and then I said, there's probably a couple of marriages in there somewhere. And she turned to me and she said, there better be. That's it. That's the savviness of friendship. It's very easy for friendship to grow among kids when they're young. And as they grow older, then they have a great set of peers when they're teenagers, when the authority of the peer group begins to outpace somewhat, or at least challenge, the authority of the parents. But if it's the very same authority, essentially just in different guise, then you're in good shape. Of course, that's how they dance, swing dance, whatever. So there are dances which are great, and it is a great way for a boy to gain confidence. And every girl loves a guy who can dance, even if he has 2 left feet. The fact that he attempts to dance is great. And our boys, they have to have... It's good for them to gain the confidence to do that. I think a great discussion around the dinner table are the criteria? Imagine this among teenage boys and girls, brothers and sisters. What are the criteria for picking a good spouse? Imagine that discussion. Have it many times, because by the time they go off to college, those criteria better be very clear, because they're going into the most target-rich environment for a good spouse they're likely to be up against again. All those young men, all those young women, and if you're savvy enough to pick a pretty good college, there's a chance that they may meet their spouse there, but they need the criteria. So the father really, actually, one of the things I'm going to just very quickly is demonstrate a course. The father molding the sexuality of his boy. That's really what it is. To be a great father, to be a great husband. That's molding the sexuality of your boy. Pre-puberty, they need sexual information as it becomes necessary for their intellect to understand stuff. Boys, pre-puberty, are not all that interested in the sexual itself. But they do have questions, and we savvily learn how to fill in those information, either ourselves, our wives, or together, and we compare with our wives. But once they hit puberty, it's now a totally different game. Now they are sexual beings. Now they can co-create with God. Now it's too young, they'd be violating his laws, but they have to hear from us how to handle our sexuality, how we handle ours so that they can handle theirs. And by the way, one of the things I think we need to pass on to our children, the universal right every child has, and that they have to guard in their sexuality until their marriage bed, which is the right of every child to the lifelong marriage of his biological or her biological parents. The right of every child to the marriage of his or her parents. Something we have to start talking about. And we start by talking to our sons and our daughters about it. They have the gift of the transmission of life. They have immediately with that a tremendous responsibility to shepherd it correctly, which is towards the marriage bed, if that is their calling, if that's their vocation. So the father-son course that myself and another guy have developed with the cooperation of 6 other great men. There's a video section to it, and there's a text section. And it's really there for fathers shaping the sexuality of their sons. And it has 6 modules. The end, which is all about it, the end, which is marriage, for the vast majority, not all. But for those who have other vocations, to the priesthood, to celibate single life, to a religious life, the foundation is the very same. The place where those vocations will grow is in the very same family life that grows great marriages. So we don't have to worry about the celibate. We will produce loads of them if we prepare our children for the vocation of marriage, which the vast majority will be called to. The second module is that whole thing of the father developing. The first one actually is about the attachment, and I've already gone over that, how to attach. And that goes on all through life, actually, all through their growing up, not just the first 3 days or the first 3 months, but right through. The second is building the confidence in our sons so that as a young man, and particularly by the time he's going off to college, and this is gradually growing, and then after college, he's ready to risk. He understands freedom. But he also understands that to use it, you have to use the talent. And using it is always risky. So he's got the confidence to risk. A lot of that, a huge amount, most of that will come from his father transmitting his confidence in his son or in his daughter. Your marriage is the biggest lesson your children will receive on what sexuality is all about. Because the only place where the sexual is operative, the only place it's meant to be, is within marriage. And when they see you have a great marriage, they'll see the ups and downs. You keep the downs as hidden as possible. But 3-year-olds see everything. I learned that as a therapist before. Therapy went very quickly in family therapy if I had a 3-year-old. because they saw everything, but they said everything. By the time they were 4, they knew how to keep their mouth shut. But believe me, they see everything, and it goes in. But they will see our love, and particularly I think it's very important for them to see that after we got a little colder, a little distant, or upset with each other, is after the rupture, the repair, the forgiveness, the constant coming back. Because all of us have to do that all our life. And then actually going to confession makes as much sense because we have to do that with God as well. And of course, the father going to confession, I think, by the way, the data is coming out. Fathers are the great transmitters, more powerful than mother. It's interesting. In the last 15 years, this is coming out in some of the long-term research. Fathers are even more powerful in the transmission of the practice of the faith to the next generation than mother is. It's not a race between either or, but it is great to see that a father has this massive role of passing on the faith. And for Catholic fathers, I can't think of anything more demonstrative of the faith. Of course, attending Mass and doing that comes first and foremost. But the humility of going to confession, that drives something very deep home. So going to confession frequently. Sex ed, we've already covered that. Pre-puberty, it's passing on information. Post-puberty, it's more intimate coaching almost. Being savvy, the right moment. Revealing a bit about your own practices, how you guard your purity, how you take care of things, all of that a young man needs to know about handling his own inner passions. And how to, Becca already covered a huge amount of that from the poetics that we got, which was a brilliant talk. And then actually the last module is about play. The secret, easy, for us guys, very simple way. You can almost throw all the rest out the window, almost, not totally, the other 5, if you take the play to heart. And you set time aside and you figure out how to play with kids. And depending on the number of kids you have, it becomes, it can become very challenging. You've got 5, 6 kids. How do you play with them all? I don't know. You figure it out with other dads, with other ways, that changes. Now, what I want to propose, we have, myself and, let me just give you an idea of what the course looks like. This is the first thing, begin with the end in mind. There's a video section, 5 or 6 different guys. Mike Moynihan, who's headmaster of the high school at the Heights. There's, I'm awful on names. I forgot Teresa's name before we married. But I had warned her beforehand. And that was when I was in my 20s. You imagine what I'm like now. Okay. The second module is the Architects of Ages. We've got the videos, which are quite attractive, and there's a text of about 12 to 15 pages going with each one. And this is a course that we started in October, and there are now 700 men using it. And the feedback we're getting is it works. Now, most of it is up in the Iowa area and up in that because my partner and myself, that's where we started. I've been holding off. The first version was very Catholic. The second version, which I call the natural law version, which is the very same course, with a total of about 5 minutes microsurgery taking out, so that evangelicals or Jewish fathers or uncommitted fathers would feel totally at ease. It's the very same course. It's almost identical, I think. But there are certain words, like if you're an evangelical and you hear praise of Blessed Mother, which is, I say to her, I had to ask Our Lady forgiveness as I was pulling that out of the video. Imagine having to do that. Oh. But we have it done, and this makes it very, very useful, particularly here. Here's what I want to propose. We know this course works. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's good, and it seems to be very good. Lots of fathers are making great use of it. It's best done in a group of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You make groups up. I think they get a bit too big after 7. Definitely 13 would be probably even better, smaller. Here's my vision. We live in one of the most important cities in the world. Washington, D.C. area. You heard Cardinal Cipriani. The world is looking here. The Marxist feminists targeted the Hill back in the 70s and 80s. They got to almost every single female congressional and Senate staff. They didn't get all of them, but they massively influenced a huge amount. You get the staff, you have Congress. And I saw it. They changed legislation, they changed the whole thing. If you can't get through the staff, forget it. You can't get to the congressman, you can't. Now, I'm not saying I'm not interested, I'm not proposing political stuff here, but what I am saying is every father on the Hill, we should get this. All these different areas around here to make over the next decade to 2 decades, to make Washington a very marriage, family friendly city. The talent that's in this room can begin that. We can easily spread it more and more. We can learn how to do it, and we can learn how to produce even better courses. We can add it for many other things. I propose we start the counter-revolution of rebuilding the United States. We become the new founding fathers, or the refounding fathers, as it were. I'll just skip to the end here. This is where you can get the course right now. We find, actually yesterday, we got the natural law version and up on this new website, raisegreatsons.org. Or if you're interested, that's my email there. It's an easy one, pat.fagan@gmail.com. If you're interested, contact me. I'm interested in reaching out to fathers, and they're just learning how to do it better. Look, I'm an older guy, as you can see. I got to pass this on soon, so I'm not trying to lead anything, but I am looking for leaders. We all are looking for leaders, and I think we all here in this room, all you men, are leaders of one form or another. Those of you who are interested, let me know, and we'll follow through.